stop me. And we're going to see how Brian can deal with this Trick Room, whether it's the trick from the Golden Go or some wide guards from Toxapex or a lot of regenerator cycling. We're going to see what Brian can do to try to maneuver around these turns of Trick Room, and that's going to happen right now as both trainers load up for Game 1.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting dynamic too. When, like, going back to that last point, Brian's team has just so many tools to be disruptive, and he's going to start right away, leading into the Enshao and the Sinistra, going out with the double regenerator lead of Ho-Oh and Toxapex. You'd love to see it.
You just absolutely love to see it. And once again, we know what John wants to do. That Fake Out Trick Room is such a time-honored combo, and the Ho-Oh is out there really looking threatening. It's got stab damage, super effective into both of John's Pokemon. You got to think that's going to be the Fake Out target with Toxapex holding the Rocky Helmet to try to deter anything funny like that. So we'll see what Toxapex does with this free turn. I imagine John's going to try to set up Trick Room. And then the interesting thing after that is, where does he go from there? How does he pivot in some of his big damage dealers and set them up in a position for success?
Yeah, and from John's side, I think a much more passive lead, even though they're the two defensive Pokemon on Brian's side. Once Trick Room does go up, there's really not a ton of damage coming out from John's two Pokemon, as he will take the Toxic on the Sinistra, and because Toxapex looks moved first, it does look like the negative priority Trick Room is being set up. Important to note here too, just before we get on to any future turns, Toxapex, of course, carrying Wide Guard for Brian's side. A feint from Mienshao will break the Wide Guard for both Pokemon on Brian's team.
It's a very important interaction to keep in mind when you have moves like Matcha Gotcha, Glacial Lance, Hyper Voice. Yep. So much spread damage coming out from John's side that feint from the Mienshao can really disrupt the Wide Guard that Toxapex wants to go for. Jacob, I have a question that I actually don't know the answer to, but it may come up in this battle. If Mienshao is at 1 HP and goes for feint into Toxapex, the Rocky Helmet chip damage activates. Does the Wide Guard stay broken, or does the Mienshao go down as it uses feint?
I believe the Wide Guard will still be broken as that interaction happens before the Rocky Helmet recoil takes place. But I would love to see that just to confirm. I'm only about 80% sure that the Toxapex going for another Toxic, trying to catch either something switching in, but the Rage Powder, redirecting that onto the Sinistra will unfortunately go back to its Pokeball, but does its job of getting the Ursaluna Blood Moon onto the field safely. And this Ho-Oh between Brave Bird Recoil and the Rocky Helmet from Sinistra takes a ton of damage. Already below half health, when John has clicked 0 damaging moves outside of Fake Out.
Yeah, but I think John is in a solid position now because those two strong attackers are out on the field. That was the puzzle, right? When you talked about that passive lead of Mienshao and Sinistra, how does John maneuver to get those strong Pokemon on the field? And he did that by sacrificing the Sinistra, and now here we go. But now it's important to note the Mienshao is no longer on the field, so the Toxapex can threaten Wide Guard. So that would make Glacial Lance and Hyper Voice really risky clicks here. So will John go for some more single target attacking effectiveness, or will he risk it, try to call a Toxapex switch out or a passive play, and try to go for all the damage and risk it being blocked?
Absolutely, and this is another important turn just from the speed tier standpoint. Who is going to be moving first? Of course, the Toxapex can be trained to be slower than both of these Pokemon on John's side, even if they are minimum speed. So we'll see the turn order here as the Raging Bolt hits the field for the first time from Brian's end. The special attack booster, pretty straightforward from that item. But this Raging Bolt, not a Pokemon that really loves to see either of the attacks from John's Calyrex. It has ice and ground coverage that are both super effective. The Terra Fire coming out on John's side. We've seen a Terastallization to a Fire type already from a Calyrex Ice Rider in this tournament, as it will take a Toxic immediately, seeing the Toxapex is slow.
Yeah, there is no Wide Guard that came out here as John goes straight for the Blood Moon, not even trying to worry about any possible Terastallization from the Toxapex. I wonder if Earth Power would have killed. Doesn't matter because the double up of Wide Guard plus high horsepower comes out. Also interesting speed interaction. The Blood Moon is slower than the Calyrex Ice. And so as a result, the Calyrex was going to get the attack boost from that interaction, and that makes its Glacial Lances all the more threatening because that Wide Guard is no longer on the field. It is fainted.
That's an incredible turn for John. The Terastallization from the Calyrex, not necessary because Ho-Oh ended up switching out, as it will come back onto the field now, but does get everything he needs out of that turn. Gets the attack boost from the As One ability, and gets rid of the wide guard option. Now, outside of defensive terrestrializations, there really aren't a ton of ways to stop a Glacial Lance just steamroll from John's end. The Ho-Oh Terra Grass, you don't want to click that in this position, just makes you even weaker. And yes, you can protect with all of your Pokemon, but there's not a ton that Protects can do against this Mienshao that's going to come in and click Feint for the next few turns of Trick Room.
Yeah, what a great switch by John, knowing that right now Brian is on the back foot, likely to go for these defensive Protect plays. And there's going to be a double Protect. So here comes the Mienshao onto the field for free. Glacial Lance is going to be protected, but John's still got another turn of Trick Room to work with, and Glacial Lance is going to, it's going to put some Pokemon on the news.
Yeah, there's going to be, I believe, the last turn of Trick Room coming up here. Calyrex, of course, still on that timer with the Toxic Poison, going to be worsening each turn after this one. But it's something that now we can see about Brian's team is that once the Toxapex goes down, because the Raging Bolt can only terrestrialize to become an electric type, the Ho-Oh is Terra Grass, there really aren't a ton of great switch-ins to this Glacial Lance, and not even just switch-ins, but Pokemon that want to sit in front of Calyrex Ice Rider in general left on Brian's side now that Toxapex has gone down.
With that being said, though, I think there is a way for Brian to pull this out, because the last Pokemon that's about to switch in here is a Golden Go. And unless John goes for a hard read with high horsepower here, then Golden Go is going to be able to take a Glacial Lance, and of course any move that might come out from the Mienshao. And now it's out onto the field outside of Trick Room and able to... Oh, that's a ridiculous amount of damage.
Oh my goodness. I was curious. I didn't know how much that Glacial Lance at +1 was going to do. But to just cleanly knock out the Ho-Oh from, say about 2/3 to 70% of its HP.
That's wild.
I'm so sorry, Calyrex. I absolutely underestimated it. I thought, okay, Ho-Oh will survive this turn. You'll be able to break the Mienshao's Focus Sash. You'll get through Trick Room with all 3 Pokemon remaining. But no, we are still stuck in this position now. Brian down to his final 2 Pokemon, as John does still have the Ursaluna Blood Moon in the back. The unfortunate thing for John, though, is that once this Calyrex does faint, this Blood Moon Ursaluna is the only way he has to hit Golden Go to do any type of damage, because the Mienshao is only carrying normal and fighting type moves.
Oh no, wait a minute. We're going to have a trick. Okay, I probably shouldn't go ahead of it. I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. Brian had to make a decision that last turn. He had to choose which Pokemon to sacrifice because something was going down to the Glacial Lance. Saving Raging Bolt was an interesting choice because Raging Bolt has trouble hitting Blood Moon Ursaluna without, lowering its special attack. And you wear off the booster energy. Calyrex is already on a timer, and you knew it was going for a Glacial Lance. It may have been a wiser move to click Thunderclap that turn, and maybe even a Terra Electric Thunderclap with the poison damage afterward nets the KO. It looks like right here, John's going to go for that Thunderclap right away as the Feint comes out into the Raging Bolt, but it did not go for the Protect. So here comes a trick onto the Calyrex. I don't think we're going to have a Thunderclap from the Raging Bolt. Is this going to make the Calyrex faster than the Raging Bolt and allow it to Glacial Lance it?
I hope so.
Oh, it doesn't.
No, Brian, likely knowing his speed tiers, knowing his Raging Bolt will still be faster.
Even but it goes into the Mienshao.
Breaks the Mienshao's Focus Sash. I don't know.
Does Trick Room or Glacial Lance come out? It's Glacial Lance.
And that
it's Glacial Lance. Yep.
Yeah, we saw the faint play from John that kind of telegraphed your Glacial Lance. And at +2, I don't think that critical hit mattered. It was going to KO
not at all
the Raging Bolt, regardless of Terra. And John Lyons will take game 1 here. I think there is a lot, though, that Brian can do in the future games to prevent that. You had already mentioned a couple of turns that could have gone either way, likely 50-50s in those players' minds. And so I think just the obvious question moving forward to game 2, what are those adjustments that Brian needs to make to keep that from happening again?
Yeah, I think Brian made some good choices in terms of which Pokemon to bring. I think Tyranitar and Excadrill will have a really difficult time. If you bring a Pokemon that can't protect, whether it's because of the Assault Vest or a Choice Band, into a hard Trick Room matchup, a lot of the times you're going to have a hard time stalling out those turns. So I think Brian did a great job identifying the tools that he needed to use. I think it was just some great play by John, some really crafty maneuvering, getting those hard hitters in. And that being said, Brian had a chance to take it back at the end. It was just kind of, like you said, a couple of those 50-50 turns that didn't quite go his way. But we'll see if he changes up anything on the leads here or with anything that's in the back. Now he knows John's preferred mode of setting that Trick Room. And it does kind of lead with those more passive mons. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if Brian switches up the leads here a little bit, tries to take advantage of the that kind of inherent passivity of those two mons that John wants to set up Trick Group with.
Yeah, and I think one of the best ways that you can take advantage of that is with a Pokemon like that Scarf Golden Go on Brian's side. It cannot be faked out because of that Ghost typing. You can trick the Choice Scarf away immediately. So on something like that first turn with either the Sinistcha or the Calyrex Ice Rider, if they are going to click Trick Room pretty telegraphed right away, you immediately are able to lock them into that, force them to switch out the next turn so that they don't reverse their own Trick Room, and get a ton of advantage right away because your Golden Go now can switch up moves too.
I think that's a really crafty play that I wouldn't be surprised to see Brian do. Because, like you said, if your choice locked into that Trick Room, you have to switch out. And you can really take advantage of that by launching a powerful move into that slot and forcing whatever is coming in to take a lot of damage. So I think, like we identified at the very beginning, Brian has the tools to disrupt John's Trick Room strategy. The question is how they're going to be applied and whether it's enough to survive the powerful attacks coming out from the Calyrex and the Ursaluna.
The other question is, does John finally bring that Alchemy? It made it clear, the Alchemy Vanilla Cream that we have not seen yet in this set. That's a Pokemon that I don't know how necessary it is. I think the 4 that John brought in Game 1 are probably the correct 4. You do need Mienshao for Fake Out and Faint. You need the Sinistcha as a secondary Trick Room setter and redirection, and then of course your 2 sweepers. But if we can see the Alchemy here in Game 2, I'll be content.
So Brian this time leading the Tyranitar and the Ho-Oh. Not the Golden Go lead that we predicted, but definitely switching it up. And what's notable about the Tyranitar is that the Sandstream is going to break the Mienshao's Focus Sash. So the Mienshao, if it decides to stay on the field here, it's really only got 1 turn to live. However, it can definitely make the most of that by launching a close combat into the Tyranitar.
Yep, could also fake out the Ho-Oh to provide a little bit more security for this Calyrex Ice Rider. What I do really like about Brian's lead is that he does have 2 Pokemon that immediately are threatening to the Calyrex. You can't fake out both of them, and the Tyranitar has the option to click Rock Slide, which 30% of the time it just prevents Trick Room going up by itself, but it will hit the Calyrex super effectively in or out of Terastallization, since it's a Fire type after Terastallization.
Speaking of Terastallization, we got that right away. It looks like this is going to be John's Calyrex Terastallizing into the Fire type. Makes me think the Fake Out or a close combat might be headed into the Tyranitar's direction, because Terra Fire makes it really safe against the Ho-Oh.
Absolutely. We'll see how much damage John can get off this turn. The Fake Out, of course, not doing too much to Tyranitar. And the Brave Birds, just as you called out, will knock the Mienshao down to its Focus Sash, and after the end of this turn, put Mienshao back into its Pokeball, fainting from the Sandstorm Recoil.
And you know who loves that interaction? John loves that interaction. Because now you're getting Trick Room up, and the Ursaluna Blood Moon comes in for free. And so now, Mienshao has absolutely done its job. It's kept the Calyrex safe from any pesky flinches or super effective damage, and despite going down, he now has 4 full turns of Trick Room to work with to bring in attackers, to launch those spread moves. I think this is exactly how John would have drawn up a start to Game 2.
Yeah, he does just get to accelerate the pace of play, and we do see the Alchemy. Let's go! Alchemy hitting the field immediately, not the Ursaluna Blood Moon, which also feels extremely strong in this position because of its ability to hit the Tyranitar super effectively. But what is a super effective Earth Power in the face of a +2 Glacial Lance right away? I'm curious to see how much this does to this Toxapex set.
As am I, because we're going to see a Decorate come out with John. Ho-Oh's protecting, but John's Alchemy is specifically built to punish these passive plays with a Decorate. And so that Calyrex is going to get +2 on its attack before it even throws off a Glacial Lance, and let's see how well this Toxapex takes it.
As long as Toxapex does survive this turn, which I believe it should with the amount of defense investment that it likely has.
All right.
It eats that extremely well. So, of course, after Sandstorm Recoil, we are going to see that with the Power Anklet, the Alchemy does underspeed the Toxapex. It's important for encore shenanigans later on in this game, potentially.
Absolutely.
But the important thing is that with the board state as it stands, no feint pressure from John's side, a Wide Guard from Toxapex means that Ho-Oh will not take any damage this turn, guaranteed, because the Wide Guard blocks the Glacial Lance, and it's naturally immune to a high horsepower.
Another interesting interaction with the speed tiers here is that the Toxapex carries the move Haze. So that would be able to get rid of any boost that the Calyrex has accrued through Decorate after the Alchemy uses the Decorate. So if Toxapex uses Haze, you're guaranteeing that the Calyrex is attacking with neutral stats. So that's a very interesting way to punish these Decorate shenanigans, and it's got to make John think twice about what move to click. However, Brian has to think equally hard because his Pokemon are facing such potentially catastrophic damage. This is what it's all about.
The Encore goes right away into this Ho-Oh, and we don't see a Wide Guard come out from Brian's end.
Instead
it's
it's
recover from Toxapex. Not hazing away any boosts, not choosing to guarantee the protection for Ho-Oh. Instead,
high horsepower, clean Oko.
A one-hit KO, the +2 high horsepower, importantly. And it looks like from the player cam, Brian might have been a little bit surprised at that high horsepower, even at +2, picked up that one-hit KO.
Yeah, Toxapex is really bulky, but I don't think many people are calcing for +2 Calyrex because that just blows up anything in its face. And now is where Glacial Lance comes out. I don't think anything that Brian has is going to be able to stand up to a +4 Glacial Lance, especially even this Golden Go. I think it might be in trouble.
Oh, the Calyrex, to be clear, is at +3 right now.
+3, yes. I forgot about that.
And the KO on the Toxapex could potentially get to +5 boosts on its attack with another Decorate this coming turn. And I would be curious, I think based on the damage that we saw it do at either +1 or +2 in game 1, I believe +5 on a Glacial Lance would be enough to knock out this Golden Go. I don't know if John will necessarily need to go for it because the Golden Go is only able to terrestrialize into a Steel type, can't get away from the ground type damage from a high horsepower, and the Ho-Oh is no threat because it's been encored into a Protect. But I think for the people, we need to see how much damage a +5 Glacial Lance can do to this Golden Go and this Tyranitar switching in on Brian's side.
I mean, this is why you bring Alchemy, right? So you can click Decorate and you can just click the spread move. Here's another Decorate. We're going to be at +5, and I think John's going to go for the Glacial Lance here because why not?
I surely hope so. +5 now, and it is the Glacial Lance coming out into a neutral and a resisted target, and those are 2 clean one-hit KOs from Glacial Lance.
Brian can only laugh.
Laughing right along with us as another set of KOs. The Calyrex's attack stat isn't going to be able to go any higher, so you see just the single boost because it can't handle 2 more boosts. There's still, I believe, is 1 more turn of Trick Room. Yes, there is. The Ho-Oh can protect through this last turn, but we still haven't even seen John's 4th Pokemon.
We haven't, and I don't think we're going to because this Ho-Oh is not going to be able to do enough damage. I think even a critical hit from Brave Bird outside of Trick Room won't be enough to fell the Calyrex, and it's just going to drop to 1 more Glacial Lance. So what a game plan by John, bringing that Alchemy, turning out to be the I guess we will see the 4th Pokemon as John decides to switch out. It's going to be that Ursaluna Blood Moon. But again, what a game plan by John, just realizing that Alchemy getting the ball rolling would be enough to take out the to Brian's team, even with those tools like Wide Guard from Toxapex that we saw.
Yeah, and because of the Power Anklet, if there's ever a single turn where Brian doesn't click Wide Guard, it is at risk of just being encored into a Recover, into a Haze, makes things immensely more difficult for that Pokemon. A Brave Bird comes out, does not do enough to pick up the KO on this Calyrex Ice Rider, and because we saw, or rather, I believe we saw the Blood Moon Ursaluna move before the Calyrex under Trick Room in game 1.
Oh, it's
going to be a Trick Room. Okay, yeah. That makes more sense than John having his Pokemon intentionally speed tie. A very safe Trick Room from John's end there. And I'm just so happy that we got to see the Vanilla Cream Alchemy come through and just do so much damage here. Just unfortunately, the Calyrex can't pick up all 4 KOs, but again, Brian just laughing right along with us at how much damage this Calyrex Ice Rider can do once it's been boosted up by its partner Alchemy.
Yeah, and I think we really saw almost all of what that Alchemy can do that game. The final little bonus of Alchemy, we didn't get to see it this game because Brian didn't have any moves that could put opposing Pokemon to sleep. But that ability Sweet Veil, keeps your Pokemon from falling asleep. And one of Calyrex Ice's biggest nemesis, if it does not choose to Terra Grass, is that Amoonguss. And next to Alchemy, it can just stop sleep altogether and just eliminates Amoonguss as a potential counter.